There we go. So, first one from Yahoo News. Sorry we haven't posted in like 2 weeks. I've been sick and I haven't had a voice much. All right. Yahoo News. Student loans to get taken over by Treasury from Education Department as Trump dismantles the latter. Yeah, so Trump is still dismantling the Department of Education. All right. The U.S. Department of the Treasury is getting ready to handle some student loan cases from while President Donald Trump dismantles the U.S. Department of Education. On Thursday, both agencies came to an agreement allowing the Treasury Department, to take over loans that are overdue by months. According to the Associated Press, the default loans from student borrowers currently amount to $180 billion. For now, the Treasury Department will only manage some student loans. Eventually, the department is expected to take over all default loans. The agreement also states that the Treasury Department will, quote, assume operational responsibility, end quote, of non defaulted loans at some point. This marks a significant change for the Education Department, which has managed student loan programs since it was founded in the late 1970s. What are critics saying about the Treasury Department handling student loans? Opponents of the controversial move say the Education Department is legally required to handle student loans, whatever, likely cause confusion for borrowers. Quote, the Department of Education has issued a dizzying series of rule changes that make it harder for borrowers to figure out what their options are on the federal student loans. Fair. Taylor told the Associated Press, devastating effect on the families. Yeah. How was the Trump administration justifying the change for student borrowers? The Trump administration says it's about dismantling the agency by an agency run by liberals, as, as the Associated Press reported. Educational Secretary Linda McMahon said the agreement, quote, marks an intentional and historic step towards breaking up the federal education bureaucracy and dramatically improving the administration of federal student aid programs, unquote. McMahon spoke about the administration's plan during her Senate confirmation hearing. According to the Associated Press, McMahon said that the Treasury is a, quote, natural, unquote, place for managing student loans. Student borrowers are considered to be in default when their loans are overdue by over 270 days. About 9.2 million Americans who are currently in default live in fear of facing serious consequences. They may see a decline in their credit scores, or they may have their Social Security benefits withheld. I did a little more digging. Besides that, let's see. So, nearly 20% of all people with student loan debts are in default. And so, out of all the ones that are in debt, 20% of them are in default. That was, so we said here give me a second. 9 million Americans are currently in default. And I believe the total number of, what's it called? People essentially with student loan debt, period, I think it was like 43, something like that. So, another thing some other statistics I was looking up was about 30 to 40% of college students drop out within the span of like their first like 2 to 4 years. Um, I mean, this is nothing new. Like the Trump administration has been talking about this the entire like since before he took office. I know before, like during Biden's administration and like during the entirety of Biden's administration, there was talking about like student loan forgiveness, which as someone with student loans, I wasn't in favor of it, but I'll be honest, if it came my way, I wouldn't have turned it down. But because like the concept of
Mm-hmm.
like it's essentially the taxpayers that are paying for the college loans. If the with the whole Joe Biden's student forgiveness thing, taxpayers
Yep.
and corporations would be paying that off, and I don't think that's fair. But I'm not the president. Trump ran on the policy that you're going to be paying back your loans, which if you take out a loan, you should be paying it back. Now, what makes there's a couple things, a couple angles I've been thinking about this on. One, we're essentially back in a war with Iran. We're in a war with Iran. We need money. The Trump administration recently asked for like $800 billion.
200 billion.
Oh yeah, it was a big
Oh,
number. I could be wrong. I'd have to look it
I think it
up.
was $200 billion.
Oh, $200 billion. Okay, yeah, for that, and they're asking that for Congress, and I think now, granted, they've been planning this the whole time, but this might have been part of the plan. But they want more money heading their way, so they're gonna have, be like, hey, you need to start paying us money. That's a form of, I guess, stream of revenue that the government would be taking advantage. Why is it taking advantage? We took out the loans, but now the money's heading to them. Like again, you should be paying back your loans, but I have some statistics, not statistics, but like loans are defaulting. We've already stated in previous episodes that people are going like those payday loan companies to get payment, pay for their rent. Prices are going up, wages aren't keeping up with those prices. It's an all-around bad time, and with the midterms coming up.
Mhm.
Now, this is not economic view. We're gonna get a little politicky here for a hot second. This is not gonna bode well. You know what I mean? Like, at least I don't think so. I could be wrong, but it's like most people are going to college. That's kind of the system we've created. Is that we've taught people to be like, hey, you need to go to college if you want to, get a good job. And as I stated before, but 30 to 40% of them are dropping out. So they're dropping out and still having those loans. 20% of those people are in default of those loans. If you're in default, you probably didn't have enough, weren't making enough to justify paying it, which you gotta pay it. Like
Yeah.
it comes with the turf of the loan, but how do I put this? How do I put this? I again we've talked about this. I don't disqualify the importance of a secondary education, but I've said it before. I think there's too much of an emphasis on just getting a secondary education without thinking through it. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there? Like again, we talked about like that Batman degree or Batman classes from, I want to say like Montana or Colorado, one of those universities. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a lot we've put so much emphasis on making, well, not making, like I don't want to say tricking either because again it's important, but basic,
Convincing.
yeah, convincing kids that you need to go to college. You have to go to college to have a non struggling life. I mean that's how it was when I was growing up. It's like you want to live comfortably, medium to medium high incomes. Is you need to go to college. Uh, so, but again, I think there's too many people going to college and too many people going for colleges for things that you didn't need college degrees for. So now people are taking out. Now, granted, when I was in college, it was like, well, when I did the math, I was gonna come out with like $80,000 in debt if I just did normal 4 years. I recently looked at a college near me, a university, not just a college, a university near me. It was like 20,000 a semester. I was going for like 10,000 a semester. Now it's like 20,000 a semester. So we're essentially getting like double the amount. It's not even uncommon. I've read statistics where it's like $400,000 is what people are walking out of with college degrees. And the problem is, I don't know if most jobs would let you live comfortably while still paying that off without the interest constantly packing on.
Yeah.
So like that again, like while yes you took out the loan, I don't entirely blame a generation of kids who are told essentially from the beginning you need to go to college to live good life. So we essentially, now granted, if I want to get a little conspiratorial here, um, I could say that college has learned that they are a business, and in order to make more money, they need more people. So tell a bunch of kids to go to college to make more money, and then you've essentially supplied yourself a generous income.
Yep.
If I
Especially
got
when it's guaranteed through federal loans.
yeah, especially through federal loans. So you'll get the money from them, government gets their cut, and it's a steady supply of income. So
Yeah,
so
it's
I
it.
yeah, go go.
I agree. Student loans are a rough problem because on the one hand, like we want an educated society with smart people who know a lot of things, and the workforce is definitely moving in the direction of a college degree being a requirement and a master's slowly sort of taking the place of what a college degree was maybe like 30, 40 years ago. Um, and like there is some pressure to like adjust to that as a civilization. So it's like, do we make college free? Do we like make specific kinds of schooling free? Do we like there's that angle, and then there's also the angle of like, I agree. There's a lot of pressure for a lot of people to go to college, get a job, go to college, get a degree, and you'll pay it off because you'll get a good job. You pay it off, and then 2008 happened, COVID happened, like right now is happening, and businesses are playing even tighter with their pocketbooks. And they're like, well, if it's between the 36-year-old, 40-something-year-old guy who's been in the industry forever and proven his worth of the 20-something new hire who just got out of ChatGPT University, uh, who do I really want on my team? It's like, well, fuck me then. Why am I spending this much money to be here? Um,
Yeah.
and also, like, university costs have gone up. It's like 4,000% or some absurd number. Like, it's the cost has non-linearly scaled with inflation, and it hasn't scaled with demand either. Um, because again, a big influencing factor is that like student loan payments are subsidized through the federal government, which means that like they are going to get their money regardless. They understand the position in the market there, and they know that everyone's going to go there. They're going to get the loans, and just going to live in debt for a really long period of time. And it's not the college's job to collect, right? They can't turn students away for like financial repayment likelihood. And now we sort of hit maybe not like a critical mass, but like that same kind of like event horizon where it's like colleges have built so much of their infrastructure around this guaranteed cash stream, this crazy high guaranteed cash stream, right? The executives or what are they called in like colleges, like the deans and the presidents and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
The paychecks are reliant on it. The sports teams are reliant on it, which are an entire industry all of their own. Like there's so much of the system that is now built around making sure you get your guaranteed cash money and noping out with it, that like to turn around now and be like, actually, yeah, you're gonna have to work on like about a tenth of this income. And like all the contractors who work for colleges and all the other stuff, like it's I think we've hit a point maybe where we've gone past that event horizon where it's like there kind of isn't a turning back without like basically mass sacrificing or
Mm-hmm.
like colleges and like, hey, we hate to break it to you, but like, yeah, given how new enrollment rules work, there are no federally subsidized loans, and you have to get a loan from a bank, and all this other stuff. And hey, yeah, only colleges with large enough endowments are now basically around, and like state schools, which maybe were like made like public, so yeah, you could go get like for example, like University of Louisville might go under, but University of Kentucky might survive because it's a state school, like University of Michigan, University of Ohio. But then non-state schools would like small private schools, like non-Ivy League schools with smaller endowments, like IU and Notre Dame might survive in Indiana, but maybe nothing else. Hanover might not. There's another one that's sort of in the Earlham, like these smaller private schools or like smaller accredited universities, like University of Indianapolis. They might all go under because it's like, listen, their structure was built on a sort of like a bad system, and the bad system is gone now, and we have to just figure it out and goodbye. Um, so there's that, and that's sort of like the gracious angle, and then there's like kind of the more critical angle where it's like, listen, there's a lot of stuff. You're right. college students earn about $1 million more than uh, your standard person who goes straight into the workforce after high school, including like all of your blue collar, underwater welder, multimillionaire people. Like it's just
Yeah.
they're not a large portion of the population. They don't really skew the data that much, or they don't affect the data basically at all. Like, and I think part of this is like there's this Americans are I wouldn't say they're a very like high bravado people. Like we're not, you know, we're not a Latinate country like Spain or Mexico, where like that sort of bravado is like, where like very outward bravado is normalized. But like in America, it's not. Everyone kind of wants to believe that they are special and they are important and they are kind of the uh, sort of ironically, I think that there's a leftist critique that does ring true in a lot of cases, which is like there's a lot of Americans who just genuinely believe they're like temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and that like their big break is just around the corner. Their big idea, the next big, it's like you're just not, dude. You're Joe Schmo from like middle of nowhere, Missouri. You're right. There's a technically non-zero chance that you are somebody, but you went to community college or you went to some state school, you majored in marketing, you went to a satellite of some state school and you majored in marketing, and you think that it's like, well, I made and you can kind of justify it to yourself. It's like, well, yeah, I did it because it was cheaper, and I did it because I got XYZ and I got ABC, and now I really get to make my big breakout. And it's like, honestly, this person probably would have been happier welding. And on top of that, I think my most elitist take on this is like, I think there's a lot of people who've I'm not against the American dream, but I think there's a lot of people who should have reasonably been able to live out that dream without sort of this delusion that they're some ultra exceptional, very intelligent person. Like intelligence has become like a very important part of who you are in America, in a way that it just
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was necessarily in the past. Like you didn't need to be smart and knowledgeable. You could just be like good at a thing and like do the thing, and like you'd make like enough of a happy enough living off of that. And then now it's just become like intelligence is like the primary currency in the United States. But whether that's socially or whether that's like economically, especially like your smarts are what make you, at least in the white collar economy, which is obviously the most profitable sector, and or at least the perception of your smarts, maybe not the actual smarts, right? Because you can kind of coast. Let's say you got into an Ivy League because your parents are rich, you can kind of coast off of that.
Yeah.
Um, I know people who've been to like nice high end private schools and have siblings that are going to expensive like Princeton and Yale and stuff, and I've talked with those people. I've been in the same rooms with them. Okay, it's embarrassing that some of that stuff is. I look at them I've been on some of the campuses. I've talked with some of the people, and I'm like, really, this is what I missed out on. Like, full disclosure, I didn't go to an Ivy League, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can hang with these people no problem. Like, this is the special creme de la creme. And you know what? Maybe I'm too stupid. Maybe I'm missing something. It's possible, but like it's the perception of the prestige is sort of what matters. Is what I'm trying to say. So maybe less intelligence itself, and more perception of intelligence. What can you prestige your way into to look smart? But
Yeah.
I think in the past it was just easier. And this could be some movement of the economy and whatnot. But I also think a lot of people who've worked white collar jobs know that like, dude, some of these are like fake email jobs where you do not need a college degree to do this. You don't need a degree in marketing to be in the marketing department. You don't need a degree in sales to be in the sales department. These are superfluous degrees that kind of help, but like ultimately, it should kind of a lot of companies I think should probably follow the military model, and I think they did in the past, and I think that's what changed, where it's like you get hired on out of high school maybe, and you're in the sales department, and as part of that, they'll maybe you get paid 40 grand a year, which is significantly less than like what a graduate college student should anticipate making, um, or not graduate college student, like someone who's graduated college
Mm-hmm.
or at like a university. Like you're making 30, 40 grand a year, which is I guess in this economy really not a lot. Um, but the company's like, hey, instead of doing some like stupid like in-house training thing, which they should be doing, why don't you just do the military thing? Put them through college. Hey, we work with XYZ state school or XYZ, university. We'll put you through their sales program as you work here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's what the military does, right? They give you a job, they give you pay, housing, food, blah blah blah, and they put you through college. I think, and obviously with the cost of tuition now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But like that sort of idea of like so much of this, so much of what people are going to school for could have been like a 6 week training course, less
Yeah.
than. Could have been like a 2 week training course or like a 6 week, apprenticeship period of, hey, you're hired on, but for the first 6 weeks, you're not really going to be doing much. You're just going to be apprenticing this person who does it this way, and they're going to teach you. And after that, we're going to take the reins off, or we're going to take off the training wheels, and you're going to go for it. And if you fail, you fail. See ya. Um, I think that's probably just the model that kind of did exist in the past. Um, and there was a little bit more probably of a sink or swim access, ab, a sink or swim um, angle to it. But I said access. I don't think that's the right word. There's sort of a sink or swim angle to it, where it's like, you got in, and if you failed, you failed. But now companies have become so risk averse. Risk aversion on some level makes sense, but I think to totally go off topic here, 1946, Ford versus Dodge. It's the case that sort of decided how a lot of companies move today. The Ford brothers sued, or not the Ford, the Dodge brothers sued Ford. They were shareholders in the Ford Motor Company, and they were suing because they didn't like that Ford was redirecting a ton of its profits, like a ton, so much of its profits, towards research and development, new factory creation, and employee pay. They, as shareholders, were like, hey, why am I last on the payroll? Right? Why do I only get the little bit left over that you didn't feel like spending? Because you can spend an infinite amount on research and development.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's an unlimited budget. So I don't like that I'm having to, eat up the scraps of what you choose to throw at us. No, your obligation is to us, the shareholders first. We get paid out first before you invest in the company. We get paid out first. And they won. And it's sort of the decisive case. And I think sort of dovetailing off of that is where we're at right now with why corporations are so risk averse, right? You just had uh, in the past 10 years, or the past 20 years, you've had a crazy amount of insane economic shocks. Um, and if you're a company, it's hard to justify if you have to pay out your investors first, taking on the big risk that is every time you hire someone, it's a college new hire. Um, but yeah, uh, going back to the college payment stuff, like the paying your college loans, I think there is an element of personal responsibility, like you said, where it's like if you. Oh yeah, that was sort of the original point I was making. Sorry, I totally derailed myself.
All good.
Um,
All good.
the specific bit where it's like people put too much stock into needing, like they feel, the economy and people, which is effectively the same thing. Put too much stock into how smart you are, how intelligent you are. How smart can you come off? How much can you show your smarts? What degrees do you have? Where did you get those degrees? In what department? How did you, blah. Like, and in the past, it wasn't as much like that. And I think people could recognize in the past, to some degree, to some greater degree than now, that, buddy, college just isn't for you. You're just not cut out for it. Like this isn't your calling. But there's prestige to it, and there's social value, and especially post social media. Um, Unless you're like, I'm a blue collar underwater welder, and I make $40 million a picosecond, and because I'm risking my life. Like, unless you can make unless you can manage to mine some prestige out of that, it really is just go to college. It really is like, dude, you're gonna be a nobody. You're gonna be a fucking nobody. And we do. I think in America we do. For some valid reasons and for many invalid reasons, we do talk down on like the trades and doing this type of work. Um, because maybe the real indicator here that we're seeing, and well, I still agree there's a personal responsibility angle. I don't think people should just be taking out loans that they are indifferent as to their capacity to repay. Because I think that's because I've seen that a lot, which I'm sure you have too. Is people just being like, well, I'm never going to pay it back, so what does it matter? It's like, well, that's not a good perspective to have, or it's
Yeah.
impossible to pay back, so it effectively doesn't exist. Um, and looking at like it, if people think, regardless of the truth, if people think that the only way to sort of live out that American dream, to have what your parents have, is to go to college, even if your dad was just like a salesman who he went in the front door, gave him a firm handshake, and they gave him a fair shot at it. You know, ironically, I was about to say the old college try, but like they gave him a fair shot, right? He walked into the Ford factory or the sales department of some local company that ended up getting moderately big, and he made a good living just because they were more um, uh, they're just more willing to hire, right? It was just a different time. And then you're a kid and you're looking at you're parenting your kid and you're looking at the statistics like, damn, they'll never have what I have unless they go to college. If you're that kid, you grow up thinking, damn, I'll never have what they had unless I go to college. And if you get
Yeah.
a whole generation of people who are thinking like that, regardless of its validity, yeah, it kind of makes no surprise that they're willing to go, you know what, I'm going to make this incredibly financially stupid decision because otherwise, fuck, I'm downwardly mobile and it's so over if I do worse than my parents. But I do think there's an element of sometimes I've met people in college who frankly should not be there. I've met people in the business school of a small like satellite school like and I'm like and it was drowning for them. It was like intellectually drowning for them. And like you should just be in the workforce. You should
Yeah.
just be working. And again, like maybe I'm being elitist, maybe I'm being whatever. Um, but yeah, I think people put less people should be going to college because I don't think college. I think the American economy over focuses on the college degree as an indicator. But I also have to recognize that like it is an indicator. Like you kind of
Mm-hmm.
can't fight that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It's just I think my main issue right now is that like I mean obviously you took out loans. You gotta pay it back. There's as far as I know, there's not a lot of loans on this earth where the people go, well, you don't have to pay this back. So it's gotta be back. But I think my problem is one, the price of university and college secondary education is getting way out of hand. I'm not saying that the education isn't there or important, but like I can't imagine calculus from Harvard is that much different from calculus from the University of Kentucky versus calculus from Northern Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like at least
yeah.
on
I
a
mean, you would
basic
hope,
level,
but
you would hope, yeah, and for sure, you'd like to imagine that the Harvard University people are they might like their job a bit more, but besides specific fields, this is gonna sound really stupid. I understand that. I watched an anime one time, and they were talking about going to college, and this guy was complaining about his friend going to a different college, and now this might be a bias because I watched this anime when I was like 8, but the dude said he said all or most colleges are the same. Some are just more expensive than others. And as someone who's went to multiple different universities, yeah, that's basically it. I can't like calculus hasn't advanced that much in my lifetime, but you're going to the I mean, granted for sure Harvard, Yale, like they have that as you said that prestigious title.
the
Tech, yeah, the
prestige.
prestige tech to it for sure. But when it comes to like, I would even say like we say like University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, University of Cincinnati, but they're just universities because they're a combination of colleges. Like it's
Yeah.
just like the College of like Arts and Mathematics, stuff like this, and it's just all labeled under university. And I think that's the problem is that they combine these different colleges and kind of like those what were those loans called that caused the 2008 recession? What would they call them?
Oh,
Those
subprime mortgage loans.
yeah, subprime mortgage loans. They got a bunch of combinations of A, AA, and AAA combined together and labeled them all as AAA and price them all as AAA.
Yeah.
So I think that's one problem. Another problem is that, like, again, I do believe the education's important, but I don't think someone who got, like, let's say, like, we'll just take the example now, like, let's average out $300,000 of college debt. With the way, like, the prices, not prices, the way, like, wages are increasing slowly, prices are going up faster than wages are can keep up with it. That person might spend the rest of their life, because ideally, not granted, this is based when I was growing up, you're going to spend the next 10, 20 years paying it off. So you're going to spend from your 20s to your 40s paying off your student loans. Then from, like, your 40s and 60s, you're going to build, that's where you build your wealth or whatever. And then from 60 to 80, that's where you coast off that. That's how it was kind of described to me. So it kind of makes sense because it's broken up in the 20s. But with the way things are, because compounding interest, the more money you owe, the more interest you have to pay off. So prices are going up, interest going up, the amount you owe is going up, but your wages, not granted, you have a degree, theoretically. In theory, you can demand a bigger wage, for sure. But, you know what I mean? That you're going to have to pay more. Ideally, you go to college to make more money, but now you have to, all that extra money you could have been making for a, theoretically a better life is now being paid towards a higher interest rate. That's my issue with it all. Is that, again, ideally you go to college to better your life. Now, granted, I agree. I would say, I'd probably agree with this statistic. I think 40% of people in college probably should not be in college. And whatever they're going for probably doesn't need a $400,000 degree from a average university. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, now this is my own bias because I do like the program. There's a program called Coursera, which I enjoy, which is basically just like college-esque courses, but you don't have to take electives. You don't have to take, certain things, like, which is what I think, what, at least in my mind, I could absolutely be wrong, is the problem with modern society is that, like, if my dad was a farmer, but okay, we're talking like 100 years ago. If my dad was a farmer, I was probably going to be a farmer. My best scenario would be going to get a higher education for farming so I can improve upon what my dad did. I think the problem is we have a lot of people who their parents were blue collar workers, and they told them to, get a degree. That way you don't have to do what I do because I hate underwater welding. So then we have a bunch of people going for degrees that nobody needs degrees for, because as you stated, a lot of these people aren't. Now I'm trying not to be mean. 40% of these people are not cut out for college, but they tried and now they've got debt. And damn, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so it's like,
Most people don't need degrees. It's crazy that we pressure people into them. It's crazy that a lot of people who are even ostensibly adults, even if they're young adults, um, uh, get like still kind of sucked into it. Where it's like, yeah, I understand on some level, but then also it's like, yeah,
yeah, so,
you're an adult.
yeah,
Two, also you're an adult whose entire upbringing has been centered, academic upbringing has been centered around achieving this thing. Also, like, it's kind of a everyone's to blame.
oh,
We got
oh,
here because everyone's at fault.
yeah. I remember. I didn't write it down. I don't know why I didn't write it down. So I, I was looking at this. I read somewhere that for defaulters, they're going. I wonder why they didn't come up in the article. I could have swore I read it from this article, but it didn't come up. That for defaulters who don't pay, they will garnish your wages up to 15%. I don't know if that's like their cap, but the number said 15% of your take home pay essentially. Um, so I can't believe I forgot about this. Wages aren't going up. more wages are staying relatively the same, slowly going up. Prices are going up. We're about to get into a war with Iran, which is going to make prices of everything else go up because resources have to be sent to the military instead of the people. And then now people are going to have less money because you're either going to pay back your loans or you're going to get they're going to garnish your wages. So that's where I was going with this. I don't know why I didn't. So there's going to be less money in the market, which means I think the economy might take a hit, especially when it comes to the stock market, because people aren't going to be able to spend as much money on products because they are. Now, granted, you took out the loan, you need to pay back the loan, but now people are. They've lived off the past 5 years, especially under the Joe Biden presidency, of like, oh, well, student loan forgiveness, and people's loans, a handful of people's loans did get forgiven, if I'm not mistaken. But most people are like, well, I can stop paying back my loans because I don't need it. Now people have gotten comfortable with how much they make. Now times are getting harder, and then now they're going to be forced to put money towards the loans that you should have been putting towards to begin with. But that's what I was going to go with that. I think the market's going to take a good hit because, again, what's called 20% of people with student loans. So out of everyone who decided they're going to go to college and they have loans debt, 20% of them are default. That means 20% of the market is going to lose 15% of their paychecks twice a month or every week, depending on how they get paid. That's going to hurt because it's like what 40. I said this earlier, like 43 million people have student loan debt.
Yeah.
That's so 9 point whatever million people are about to lose 15% of their paycheck because that's the defaulters. And then the other, I think the other 80% are going to have to start paying. Or they'll be responsible, but they're still going to be losing a portion of their paychecks, which is kind of going to help us get into the next segment. Oh my god, I haven't been keeping time. Give me a second. And that's going to get us to our next segment when it comes to oil, especially now.